What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Cosmic Wonder. I'm Warren Thompson, and today we have some really exciting news about the future of the MCU, but specifically about what is about to happen in Phase 5. We know that there are a lot of people out there who really enjoyed Phase 4. However, we also know that there are a lot of people out there who really didn't enjoy Phase 4. Some say that it didn't really feel like Marvel, there wasn't a lot of connectivity, and there wasn't really that many exciting projects. And despite whichever side that you are on, or maybe you're in the middle, it looks like Marvel Studios is about to take it up a notch, and they do say that that was indeed a building phase, which we all knew. Plus, not to mention, we never had the inclusion of any Disney Plus series before. So this was brand new territory, and from what it sounds like, Bob Chapek really put an emphasis on Disney Plus, so he was kind of demanding as far as what he wanted and how much he wanted. But with Bob Iger back, it seems that we are going to be focusing more on creativity and quality more, moving ahead with all things Disney. And of course, that includes Marvel. And recently, a screenwriter from Marvel Studios has told us that things are about to get very different in the MCU and basically be taken up to a very higher level. Plus, not to mention, we've had some reports over the past couple of months that state that Kevin Feige wasn't exactly pleased with Phase 4 either. But now he has recently commented on superhero fatigue, as in people getting tired of superhero movies, so of course we'll have to talk about that today as well. But first, let's talk about how Phase 5 is about to really pick things up for the MCU by talking about what writer Jeff Loveness had to say. Jeff Loveness is a screenwriter for Marvel Studios, and he recently wrote Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. Now, this is a huge film. Keep in mind, this isn't just the next Ant-Man film. This is the official and true introduction of the big bad of the entire multiverse saga, Kang. And it seems like it's been confirmed that we are going to kind of get Kang's background and kind of his origin story in this film. So it's very, very big. Plus, if you caught my video yesterday, you know that Paul Rudd and the director of the film, Peyton Reed, both confirmed in an interview that we are going to be seeing some surprising faces and cameos in the movie. So this is a huge movie, and it's going to start off a new exciting phase. And here's what he recently had to say about Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, Kang, and Phase 4 now going into Phase 5 and how it's going to be different. In an interview with Games Radar, here's what he had to say. Kang is a top-tier A-list Avengers villain. What do you do when you feel you're not enough against that? How do you step up to face the challenge of this generation? Who is Thanos on an exponential level? He's almost this infinite Thanos. I think we're setting things up for a pretty dynamic story. As I'm building to Avengers, I want it to feel like a generational struggle. So here we're talking about building up Phase 5 and Phase 6 and what Phase 4 was. He continues to say, Phase 4 felt like the birth of new characters. You're giving everyone a little bit of a breath. You're broadening out the universe. You have fun Disney Plus shows that are elevating characters. And now I think it's time to put the pedal to the gas again and really take all these new characters that we like and throw them into the fire. So before we really dive into what he just said and talk about what Kevin Feige had to say about superhero fatigue, let's talk about how nice it is that Marvel Studios essentially does take feedback from the fans. No, we don't really control anything, at least not to a major extent. However, Marvel Studios does hear this feedback, and a lot of times they kind of make minor changes to some things because they think that it'll be received better from the fans. And this is something that I actually admire about the studio. And in this case, I think there's been a lot that's been said about Phase 4. I think the studio has heard it, and I think they're making sure that Phase 5 is going to be on a different tone and on a different level. And like they said, it was a building phase before, introducing new characters and kind of giving us a little bit of a breather. But as Jeff Loveness says, that's over. They're about to be thrown into the fire. Phase 5 is going to be different. And I think the biggest reason that Phase 5 is going to be different is what Jeff Loveness had to say about Kang and how he's basically an infinite Thanos. But here's how he's truly going to be different. This is a big difference between him and Thanos as how they were introduced into the MCU. We're going to see Kang in many different projects before the Kang Dynasty and Avengers Secret Wars. We are actually going to truly get to know who Kang the Conqueror is. So we are going to know him on a more personal level. Thanos wasn't really in any other films. He had small cameos or post-credit scenes, but really his main introduction and his story came in just 2 films, the final 2 films of that saga. This is kind of the opposite. We're experiencing Kang from the very beginning of Phase 4 when we met He Who Remains, and he explained basically who him and his variants are. So we're going to get to know him on a very personal level. In fact, Jeff Loveness even tells us a little bit about Kang. He says, Kang's also a very lonely character. We're going to be seeing a lot of him in a lot of different ways going forward, but I really wanted to introduce the humanity and even the vulnerability of this character before he gets to such apocalyptic Avengers scale heights. So Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania is going to be an Avengers level movie, and the next time we see Kang in another film, or maybe even a Disney Plus project like Loki Season 2, it's going to be pretty apocalyptic and Avengers level as well. So Phase 5 and Phase 6, the projects inside of them are going to be on a much more elevated level. Very different from Phase 4, which is super exciting. And guess what? Marvel is not stopping. A lot of people have asked if the Marvel Cinematic Universe will ever come to an end, or maybe they'll reset. Well, according to Kevin Feige, no. Kevin Feige was recently on the Movie Business podcast, where he was asked about superhero fatigue and how long Marvel Studios will last, and how long they will essentially make superhero movies for. And here's what he had to say. I've been at Marvel Studios for over 22 years, and most of us here at Marvel Studios have been around a decade or longer together. From probably my second year at Marvel, people were asking, well, how long is this going to last? Is this fad of comic book movies going to end? And he says, I didn't really understand the question because to me, it was akin to saying after Gone with the Wind, well, how many more movies can be made off of novels? Do you think the audience will sour on movies being adapted from books? You would never ask that because there's an inherent understanding amongst most people that a book can be anything. A novel can have any type of story whatsoever. So it all depends on what story you're translating. Non-comic readers don't understand that it's the same thing in comics. And then here is where he addresses stories moving forward in the MCU about superheroes, of course. He says, there's 80 years of the most interesting, emotional, groundbreaking stories that have been told in the Marvel comics, and it's our great privilege to be able to take what we have and adapt them. Another way to do that is adapting them into different genres and what types of movies we want to make. I found that if we tell the story right and we adapt them in a way that the audience is still, knock on wood so far, is following us along 22 plus years later, we can make any types of movies that share 2 things: the Marvel Studios logo above the title and a seed of an idea from our publishing history. So for those of you who have been asking that question, will Marvel Studios ever stop making superhero movies? The answer is no. At least not on Kevin Feige's watch. There's a lot of stories they can tell. There's so many characters they can tell the stories about. And they've already begun to explore the different genres out there, like Werewolf by Night was horror, Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness was horror. So they're branching out into different genres, and it sounds like Marvel Studios has a lot of big plans in store for us for Phase 5 and Phase 6, and then beyond, because after that, we're going to start getting the X-Men and the Fantastic Four. That's going to be the focus in Phase 7 and beyond. So Marvel Studios right now is looking super bright, and I think fans are about to really love what is about to come in Phase 5 and Phase 6. But hey, let me know your thoughts about this in the comments down below. Please don't forget to like the video and subscribe to stay up to date on the latest MCU news, and for live updates, you can follow us on Instagram and Twitter. As always, thank you all so much for watching. Woof woof.